Right, so if you're tired of seeing gurus tell you online that there's simple tips, tricks, or habits that you can do in order to change your life in 30 to 90 days, and you're looking for content that's more in depth, then you're in the right place. On this page, we talk about deep level identity change. So we're looking at your whole character as a whole, your personality traits, really diving into your mentality, your philosophy, and figuring out what's stopping you from becoming the sort of person you've always dreamed that you can be. I've got a newsletter called The Next Chapter, where on a week-to-week basis, I send you framework, mindsets, philosophies that you can take on board that can help you clearly see where you're going wrong in life. We cover all subjects from health, wealth, and relationships. I'm gonna leave a link in the bio. Make sure to click that link below, and let's get started with the video, guys. Let's go. Right, guys, so in this video, we're gonna be talking about leadership, right? And what makes a good leader, and how leadership is actually a personality trait that you can cultivate through macro and micro things that you do regularly on a day-to-day basis. So first of all, I'm going to start by saying this. Imagine that there's two CEOs, right, guys? And I want you to tell me which one you believe will be the best leader. So both of them are the same age. They've got the same background. Similar in terms of experience as well. Both got quite a few years in their respective industries, and they're both applying for this role of CEO for a company. They're both experienced enough to get to the final stage interview. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the CEOs personality traits they have. So one of them, he's got a little bit of anxiety. He's typically quite a bossy sort of type of boss. He's somebody who's always giving out demands. He's aggressive in his approach in business. He doesn't really have empathy for his team, and he expects things to be his way or the highway. On the other side, the other CEO, he's also experienced like the other one, but he's a little bit more empathetic. He's able to read people, understand that different companies have different cultures, and that not necessarily his way of doing things in his previous job is going to be the same thing he needs to do to be successful in this role, because this role offers a new dynamic situation that he's never been in before. And he might have to adapt and adjust, think and move quickly. Which CEO do you believe will do a better job? CEO A, who's used to one way of doing things, really aggressive and only wants things in his way or no other way? Or CEO B, who has an open mind and is going to go into this situation with an open mind and basically make his decisions based off of the situation he's in and the environment he's now in. I'm sure both of them offer traits which would be very useful in the work environment. You might argue that the first CEO is more likely to get things done his way, and maybe if his way is the correct way, he's probably going to have a very successful time in the company. He might not be the most liked, but your job as a CEO is not to be liked. It's simply to make sure and guarantee the success of a business. But I'm sure we can all agree that CEO B is the sort of person you'd want as a CEO, someone who takes into consideration that not every environment requires the same set of rules being applied to it. See, I believe one of the traits that make a good leader, and I want to start with this, is the ability to adapt to different scenarios. You need the emotional intelligence to work with the different sets of people. See, a leader understands that not everybody has the same personality trait, right? Not everybody is used to a particular way of working. And they need to be able to recognize that and find a solution that works in unison with the majority. So, with this example that I gave to you, leadership is all about who you are as a person. See, the second CEO has empathy. He's built himself up in a way that he's open-minded, he's more agreeable, right? He's got boundaries, of course. He's not going to tolerate absolutely anything, but he needs that ability to walk into a room and be able to distinguish when it's time to be confrontational and when it's time to sit back and have a listening ear and understand the situation a little better. Good leaders think, move, and they do this quickly. They don't have a problem with it. They're not scared of the unknown like the regular person is. I want to cover those sorts of characteristics that I believe you need to build in order to become a leader. Like I said earlier, there's macro things you can do, An example of this is whenever you're put into a position of being a leader, whether that's a manager, whether that's a parent, whether that's a teacher, whether that's a coach, personal trainer. There's so many positions in the world that allow you to become a leader, and you can begin to develop this skill of being a leader, right? These are the macro examples. What are the micro examples that you're developing your character that are going to complement you when you become a leader? Well, what's your patience like? What's your ability to handle stress like? Are you quite an empathetic person? Are you able to see things in another person's perspective? What are your persuasive skills like? See, we're always developing these skills one way or the other. Some people are doing them subconsciously, unconsciously. Some people have them in the forefront and are constantly working towards building them up. And if you build them up, whether you are a leader now or you're looking to become a leader, once you get in that position, you're more equipped to do a more effective job in that role. So let's talk about the different ways in which you can begin to build leadership skills if you haven't got it, and the way in which you can develop your leadership skills if you're already a leader. And let's look at your life as a whole. Because I believe in order for you to lead other people, you need to start by being able to lead yourself. And that's where we all struggle, myself included. I'm not coming to you here as the big CEO of a giant tech company that's achieved it already. If that was the case, I'm sure I wouldn't have time to be sitting down and talking about this video. I'd have bigger fish to fry. But I'm here to tell you about things that I've observed in my own life where I've lacked being a leader, where I've seen good leadership, where I've seen bad leadership, and how I've sort of adapted throughout the course of my small time on this earth at 30 years old. And we're going to be taking those lessons that I have extracted. We're going to be figuring out now what we need to work on a regular basis in order to begin to shape ourselves into the sort of person who can be put in leadership positions. See, in this world, in order for you to be successful, it's not the things you do, it's the person you become. And one of the most important character traits you're going to need is you're going to need to embody the characteristics of a successful leader. I want you guys to start looking at yourselves like you are the business and you are the CEO of the business. And you have to manage yourself in a way that's effective. Create systems, have people in your life that you hire and fire that are going to best suit your agenda and help you get to who you want to become and what you want to achieve in your life. So I'm going to start this off with a story, guys. I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I've got a background in sales. Now, one of my sales roles, which I had about 8 years ago, the first sales role I had in telecommunications, is essentially I had a job where I would phone people up. They would be using a different internet provider, different landline provider for their home phone. And my role was essentially to call them up, cold call them up, and persuade them to change from their current provider to using us. This is hardcore sales. If you know what cold calling is, hardcore sales. This is, you don't get the opportunity to sort of gradually build the sale over time. Some of you might agree or disagree with the tactics and the things you use, but I'm just trying to be transparent and tell you what I learned about human nature during this experience. But in these type of roles, when that person picks up the phone, the objective is by the end of the call, you've made a transaction. You've gotten card details, you've successfully sold something. This isn't something that you slowly build up over emails. This is pure cold sales skills. There and then, you get commission. You make your pounds, your dollars there and then. And if you've ever worked in that sort of environment, you know how cutthroat it can be. Now, my first time in this role it's the first time that I was working in an office role that actually encouraged me to sort of wear suits. See, I was working in retail. And retail, yes, you do dress smart because I worked for certain luxury brands like Gucci, Versace, where you had to suit up and things like that. But it wasn't a role that really required much skill. You know, it's really a laid back role. You sort of just stood there and you make conversation with customers, and eventually they come to buy what they already know they want to buy. But this environment was cutthroat. See, if you weren't good at your job within the first 2 weeks, you could get fired just like that. The turnover was crazy. Now, when I first got into this role, there was quite a large group of us. See, the inductions they do in companies like this is they'll bring in an influx of people. Let's say it's 20, 30 people at a time, and they're hiring every 2 weeks. So you can imagine the people going in and out of the business. Now, we were all relatively young. I believe I was 23, roughly around there. So it was about 7 to 8 years ago. Yep, because I'm 31 shortly. And when we first started in the role, one of the most difficult things that I noticed is the training was very minimal. The training was going to help me with the knowledge, but actually learning the sales, I had to learn that on the road itself. Now, in my training group, I was one of the most effective at learning the script very quickly and going through sales. So what happens is in this company, there was different teams and different commission structures based off of each team. The best team had the highest commission paid structure. Now I ended up being put in I went from a recruit all the way to the highest paid team. This is where the wolves were. If you ever watch Wolf of Wall Street, beating on your chest, this was these guys. Whenever they got a sale, they would be cheering, throwing balls at each other, laughing at each other, calling each other names, everything under the table. This was a really chaotic environment, right? And you'd have to deal with this whilst also dealing with customers on the phone. Now, when I first got into this role, they sort of just threw me on the phone. They made me sit next to somebody and they just said, there you go, here's a script. Get on with it. I didn't know how to use the system. I didn't know what buttons to click. And like I said, this place was very cutthroat. I had to learn to not only pick up what everybody else was doing very quickly, but I had to learn to execute it. And I didn't have the blessing of being able to be one of those naggy employees that says, what do I do now? What do I do now? See, a lot of the team culture there was young, so you didn't have those leaders that have got vast years of experience where they're able to communicate to me at 23 years old in an effective way that's able to make me see what to do next. I just had to pick up the job very, very quickly. Now, why do I tell you this? The first thing I want to let you know is that in order for you to embody the character trait of being a leader, one of the traits that you're going to have to learn to do is you're going to have to learn to think quick. You're going to have to learn things and implement them very, very quickly. Your learning to implementation muscle has to be developed strong. See, you don't get the blessing of always knowing what the map looks like. See, if you're trying to build a business or you've already got a business, yes, there is people who can give you advice, guide you a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's really up to you to make this thing happen. And not all the time are you going to find the answers from somebody else. It's up to you to be quick on your feet, be able to take in information, look at your environment and make decisions that you believe are in your best interest and not be afraid to fail a few times. See, on that job, I was not afraid to fail every single time someone picked up. Sometimes I'd stutter on my words. You pick up the phone. Hello, this is Tina. You know, they hang up straight away. Your tone of voice, you got to work on that. You've got to know the right things to say to keep them on the phone and then keep them on the phone long enough to the point that you can get to the point where it's a transaction and the sale goes through. That's the first thing I learned. But really where I learned about leadership in this role is as the weeks went by, I did become quite good at it. In fact, it was the first job role, I would say, where I actually thrived. In fact, within a few weeks, I was the top sales agent on the entire floor. They actually used to call me Target Tino. Anyone who knows me who's watching this knows that nickname. Because the target was always 2 sales. Because the sales were so hard to get, you would do about 150 to 200 calls. But if you could get 2 of those as sales, then you did a good job. Now, I would get 2 sales before lunchtime. Most people would get 1 sale by the end of the day. I get 2 before lunch, and then anything else, I'd just be coasting. And when you're the best sales agent in a company like that, which pretty much works as a meritocracy, you become very close with the manager of your team because, of course, you two are good friends. And my manager he wasn't a hands-on manager. His role was very simple. He would look around the room and he would make sure that everybody was doing their role continuously throughout the day. So he wouldn't really give you advice. He wouldn't know what we're dealing with on the phone because it had been a while since he'd been on the phone. So he didn't know the objections we're dealing with. The team briefs, all he would do is give us a bit of motivation. Like, come on, guys, I want you to get 2 sales. He basically was managing our mood, right? But me, I was actually in the field. I was actually in the trenches with the other agents in my team. And when I became top salesman, what happened is the people wanted to shadow me because they wanted to learn what was I doing in order to get these sales. And this is where I accidentally learned leadership skills unconsciously at the time because it wasn't something that I knew I was doing. But when you're put in a position where you have to teach somebody something that you're good at, for the first time, that thing that you're doing has to become something that you do consciously. Because up until that point, I was just in the flow of making sales on the call, but I wasn't actually breaking down what I'm doing in order to get the sale. Right? So for the first time, I had to look at what I'm doing, figure out what I'm doing, see what's working, what's not working, and then explain to that person how they can do exactly what I'm doing and explain it in a way that they understand. I had demonstrated this through me being on the phone and them sitting next to me side by side, but also when they're on the call, I had to tell them exactly right. This is what's happening. Now, in the role that I was in, usually you're working with headsets and you're speaking on the phone, right? But you weren't able to plug into the calls that other people were doing. So I couldn't hear what the customer was saying. So the way in which I would coach someone is I was so accustomed to the customer journey. I would know what the customer's saying simply by what the sales agent was saying. So if the sales agent was saying, no, don't worry about this, as in 15, 20 seconds into the call, I know that the reason they're saying that is because probably the customer's saying, why do you want to know my address, my name? So I would know immediately, right? If you say this, this, and this, it's going to work because this will bring their defense down and they're going to actually give you the details. Then you need to tell them something to make them trust you. So what we would do, for example, is we would ask for their details for data protection, address, name, whatever. They'd have objections like, no, I don't trust you. I don't know who you are. You've called me out the blue. Then I would say something to lower their defenses by saying, I'll tell you what, if you give me that information, I'll open your account and I'm going to tell you exactly what you're paying month to month currently on your bills. Because we would have their landline bill. So we would know exactly what they're paying. So once we got that, they would know, okay, whatever it is we're looking at, we already know some sort of information about them. That's how we got their number. So we're not just calling someone we don't know. We have some sort of information. So you see what I'm saying? I would have to learn why I said that works. But when I initially learned it, I was just saying it because I figured it worked on one call and I just kept repeating it. But when I was teaching people, I had to learn why it works. Long story short, over time, I was always somebody when I came into work that I would always manage my state, because when you're doing cold calling all day, you have to stay in a good mood. Because believe me, the job you're doing is so repetitive, it's so mundane that it's very, very easy for you to begin to hate your job. You can mentally go crazy. I seriously think there should be mental health protocols in companies like this, because it's really hard. Trust me, it takes mental resilience. So I was always the person who hit target before lunch, so I'd be making jokes with everyone and everyone's mood would slowly go up. And this would make them sell better. And eventually, I began to realize that when they're in a good mood, it comes across in their voice, in their attitude, and they're able to make more sales. So although my manager was just putting people next to me to teach them how to sell, they ended up looking at me as the leader within that particular company. They saw me as the person, whenever they had an issue, they would call me over. My manager pretty much had his feedback. Now, me, I wasn't somebody who wanted a leadership position. So I wouldn't always show up to shifts. I was 23, I was young, and I knew that I was so good at my job that they weren't going to fire me, so I would take the piss. I was still drinking heavy then, so maybe if I got drunk the previous night, I'd sleep in, wouldn't come into work, because I knew if I skipped a day, I'd come in the next day anyway and outsell everyone on the floor. So it didn't really matter. I was taking the mick, I'll be honest with you guys. But I was a leader pretty much in that position because I was able to demonstrate what you needed to do. I was able to have empathy, see where the other agents were basically inadequate in comparison to me, and teach them what they needed to do. And that was the first role that taught me about leadership. And like I said, at the time, I didn't realize how important what I was learning in this role was. But maybe you guys have had a similar situation where you've been a manager. Maybe you're a parent right now. maybe you're already a leader. And one of the most important things you know is you have to demonstrate how to be a good leader. You have to be decisive and you have to be able to learn quickly. And there's all sorts of personality traits that you have to develop. These are the micro things I was speaking about. In that role, I was learning things like my learning muscle from learning to implementation. I was building that muscle up. Being thrown onto a phone call where I didn't know what to say, what to do, how to use the system, but learning it very quickly within a few days. Because literally my career was on the line. They would fire me if I failed to pick it up very quickly. My ability to communicate what I'm doing successfully and teach somebody else, I was learning that, mentoring. These are all the character traits that make you a leader, and you can put yourselves in positions that help you develop that. I would recommend, if you've never done a managerial type of role, you need to put yourself in a position where you do that. Mentor someone in some aspect of life. If you have got a good physique and you maybe are quite strict with your diet, maybe teach someone how to also have a good diet. It's going to help you develop your personality. Now, when I was in this role, eventually my manager would get to a position where we was put into different sales campaigns and we'd have a new environment where I wasn't the top agent because I didn't know how to sell that. And once people stopped looking at me as the leader, they began to go back to him as the leader. But he hadn't developed all the characteristics that I had, the empathy, the ability to communicate with different people in the team, know their personality, what works with them. He sort of had a one-shoe-fits-all strategy where he would basically try to pump up your state, motivate you, and expect you to just make sales off of that. But everybody was different. There was men, there was women, different ages, and different people needed a different approach. And he was young enough as a manager that he hadn't developed the leadership skills. It was his first time in a leadership position, and you could tell. He was a pretty good leader. I'm not going to just push him down. He was a very good leader. I felt he's one of my favorite leaders that I've had so far in the work environment. But I could understand from the point of other employees where his communication was not the best. Now, when they started to look to him for advice, for tips and everything like that, he wasn't able to communicate to them what to do. And because of that, they were failing in the role, and because of that, he was also getting told off by the CEO because our team sales were now starting to slowly go down. And he became frustrated, and he would take his frustration out on us. But it wasn't an us problem, it was his leadership ability wasn't developed enough to know what to do in that situation. Now, there's things we could have done definitely to take accountability and things like that, but there's a lot that he needed to work on if he wanted to build our team up again. And that environment that I worked in that sales environment, taught me so much about the importance of understanding your team, the culture, and that not every single person wants the same type of communication. Now, there's multiple different traits that go into being a leader, and I'm going to break them down and how you can begin developing them yourself in real time. I'm going to be giving you insights into my life, but I'm also going to be telling you what you can do in your life to begin to develop these characteristics so that later on in your life, you're the sort of person who's viewed as a leader. You can command a room and they can listen to what you do based off of these traits. I work on these on a day-to-day basis. I had to see them in myself, and I wasted 11 years not actually paying attention to these traits. And I hope I can save you guys some time with this video. So let's get into the character traits. So the very first character trait you need to pick up is you need to be a very decisive person. You need to be able to make decisions quickly. See, non-leaders play defense. Leaders play offense. When they think of an idea, they try it immediately. There's no hesitation. It's not like the average person. Now, why do I say that? When I was working in a sales role, there was always times when I would be speaking to somebody on the phone and I knew that our product and service was one cheaper than what they had, could provide them a better service. They knew this, they understood this, but they wouldn't necessarily take up what we had to offer. And I used to wonder why. And something I've learned in sales is that people in general have a track record of making decisions in their life, which they use as a reference point when they're making future decisions. And somebody who might have purchased the wrong thing, invested in something that didn't work out, trusted in something that didn't live up to what it was, These people are not so confident in their decision-making ability. If somebody's gone through bad relationship after bad relationship, you'll typically find that when they're going into their next relationship, they're not so optimistic. They're almost playing on the defense. Should I trust this person? So their philosophy and their ability to make decisions is based off of their previous decisions not being so good. And you're battling that every single time you try to persuade someone. See, the challenge isn't with what you're saying. The challenge is with their experience up until that point. If they're naturally a non-confident person in their decisions, then no matter what you say or how good your offer is, they're not going to go forward with making the right decision in their life. When I learned this, I started to see it in myself, right? Any single area in my life where I struggle to make a decision very quickly, whether that's something as big as what career should I go down, or something as small or really emotionally investing as what sort of personality do I want in a significant other? These sort of decisions that you have to make in your lifetime, right? If you're somebody who can't come up with a clear answer very quickly, you're not a decisive person. And very quickly, it's easy to tell that you're probably not in a position of leadership, because to be a leader, you need to work on your decisiveness ability. Your ability to make decisions is one of the most important traits you need to develop. And every single bad decision you've made in the past is shaping your personality unconsciously. You get to a point in your life now where you want to progress, you want to move forward. But you've built up all these limiting beliefs, these fears that you've got, and this hesitation that you have. We know somebody like this. Maybe you're the person like this. I know I can be. Have you ever met somebody when they're going shopping, they can just never pick what they want to actually buy? They can't make decisions just like that. And there's people that can walk into a store, they know exactly what they're buying, what they came for. They go there, they get to the checkout, and they're already out. They got no time to waste. I want you guys to look at the big and small decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis. How decisive are you in your life right now? How many of you have actually clicked the link below and subscribed to the newsletter and made a decision that you're actually going to get some of this information into your inbox every day so you can read it, begin to develop your mindset? How many of you have really bad spending habits, and you know for a fact that you should open up a savings account and begin to delegate some money to your savings, but you haven't started that? What decisions are you holding back on? Every single time you fail to make a decision, you're denying yourself of becoming the sort of person who could be a leader. You're failing to lead your own life. And because you fail to lead your own life, you'll never be able to lead other people. Decisiveness is the first trait you need to develop. And you can do this in your life every single day. Should you go to the gym today? Yes or no? Make a decision quickly. Yes, I'm going to the gym. If you make that decision, go. If you say you're going to wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, whatever it is, wake up at that time and get out of bed immediately and go. I don't care if you get in the gym and you do 10 push-ups, then go back home to sleep. But just get used to making decisions. Because you gotta understand, everything is bleeding into something else. And similar to that person that has made bad decision after bad decision for every relationship they're in, this is why they can't find another partner. Because they've made so many bad decisions, they no longer trust themselves to just pick a partner. They meet a partner who's got the ideal personality they want. Rather than thinking, yes, this is what I've been looking for, they think, oh, this is too good to be true. Whoops, if I get burnt like last time. Now they stay single and now they're more miserable than if they'd just given it a shot. They deny themselves of happiness. Is this you? Where are you doing that in your life? It's easy to think of these videos, watch them and think, oh, that doesn't apply to me. But I want you to be a critical thinker. Begin to actually think, where am I lacking the ability to be decisive? Which aspects of my life? Is it financial? Is it personal relationships? Is it the path I want to go down? I speak very vaguely when I say to you guys, you have to become the sort of person you want to become. And I don't define it for you because we all have different ways in which we view ourselves. Me, I decided I want to be the sort of person that's able to just free associate and just speak just like that. So what do? I film videos like this. Every single time that I get on camera and I speak to the camera, I'm building that muscle because I know the person I want to be, the leader, the version of me who's a leader has to have the ability to communicate, has to articulate himself in a way that inspires action out of other people. How can I practice that on a day-to-day basis? Well, on a week-to-week basis, I can release videos like this with very minimum notes that I'm looking at and just figuring out what to say. See, I'm not reading this word for word. What are some of the things that you lack the ability to make decisions in? Let's start working on that. I want to talk to you guys about the second one, which is the concept of the winner effect. I've given this example in previous videos, but let's go again. So I want you guys to picture two boxers who go into a fight. If you've got one boxer, let's say like Anthony Joshua in the early stages of his career, came into the boxing game and he was knocking out opponent after opponent after opponent. Now, I remember watching his fights back then, he would always play on the offense. He was throwing his punches to win, not throwing his punches to not lose. See, when you've got a boxer who's basically coming off the back of consecutive wins, every single punch he's throwing with confidence because he believes he's going to knock you out. If he's got a series of losses behind his belt, then every single fight he's playing on the defense because he's so scared of getting knocked out again and basically going through the experiences he's gone through in previous fights. So he's playing more on the defense. Like I said earlier, when you've made good decisions all your life, it's very easy for you to make decisions for investing into something, paying for a coach, getting a mentor. Because you know you've got a track record of paying mentors in the past, getting good results, moving forward. If you've never actually gotten useful information from the courses you've got, then every single time somebody else offers you a solution or someone like me gets on camera and says identity change, you're hesitant about that. That's your winner effect. You need to develop your winner effect. You need to start getting small wins. Those small wins will build up your confidence. Your confidence, as it builds and it compounds, you're going to be able to make better decisions for yourself. Bigger decisions, take bigger risks. The life you want requires you to take risks. And that's the second trait you need to also develop, is the ability to take risks. Bet on yourself, self-belief. See, any single person, whenever someone looks at a piece of content and thinks that's a scam, I never had that issue growing up. Whenever somebody said to me, you can achieve whatever you want, I never doubted it. In fact, some people would argue that made me gullible. I've definitely been scammed before. But I was never afraid to invest in the idea of me being able to achieve what I want in this world. I meet people where you tell them that and they will tell you every reason in the world why they can't achieve something. Their winner effect is terrible. They've got the loser effect. Bad decision after bad decision, to the point they don't even believe in their own self. So they don't make decisions that can actually help them move in the right direction. You need to start getting a series of wins. What does that look like? Like I said, this is micro things you can work on. When you set yourself a decision to make, wake up and do it. This is going to change the self-dialogue in your head. And at the end of the day, say to yourself, well, I didn't get absolutely everything done. I'm not big in muscles or anything like that. I went to the gym today, but I made progress. Let that sit with you for a minute. You're the sort of person to take action, and understand that the competition out there is not taking action like you. When you make a decision to come onto this channel, make notes, write things down, really sit down and contemplate with it, what you can learn from this about yourself, you're building up that winner effect, that winner's mentality that you need in order to be a leader. And when that grows, you're going to begin to take bigger risks. And those risks are going to have higher rewards. And one day you're going to cash in on one of those rewards. These are the traits you need to build in order to become a leader. If you're in a leadership position and you haven't built the ability to take risks, the business or whatever your leadership position you're in, everything's going to stagnate. Nothing's going to progress. And I truly believe when something isn't going up, it's slowly going to start to decline. The third thing you need to understand in order to be a successful leader is you need to set the example. See, we always see these quotes online, like birds of a feather flock together. You are the 5 people you surround yourself with. And we always think that the simple solution we need to do is if we just linger around successful people, watch a successful video on what to do, and we just take in the content and consume it, we're somehow going to become successful. No. For you to be a great leader, you need to be able to set the example first. You need to be what you're trying to inspire people to be. One of the reasons it took me so long to start this YouTube page, I'm going to be a little vulnerable with you guys, is one, I didn't know what to talk about. Like I said, I wasn't a very decisive person. I would play around with all sorts of side hustles that I wanted to do. Crypto, TikTok shop, high ticket sales. I wasn't grounded in one thing that I could pursue. I would jump from one thing to another because I didn't know who I was. I didn't actually take the time to understand the influences that have shaped my personality. I speak about that in my previous video. If you haven't seen that already, make sure to watch that. Once I decided I wanted to create YouTube, one thing that scared me was that I was going to be an amateur. In this video, I've probably made a few mistakes in my sentences. There's a few filler words that I use whenever I'm trying to think of something to say. And I was scared that if I wasn't an absolute expert when I got onto the camera, nobody would want to listen to me. Because I haven't got this great CEO credential under my belt, where I can say to you guys, look, I'm the CEO of this company. I can't make a video like this about leadership. But I realize a leader sets the example. See, in order for you to be a leader, you have to step into the fire first. You have to show people that you're willing to take action, willing to look at your life. This is why every video I give you an example of my life. Not because I think that you guys are particularly interested. I know you couldn't care about my life that much, but I'm trying to get you to see that I also look at myself when I make a video like this. I'm trying to set the example that it's okay to be an amateur. And every time I make a video like this, which has mistakes, which has me messing up my words, intending to say something, saying something else, I'm showing you guys that it's okay to be an amateur. What's not okay is just sitting on the stands like a spectator. You need to be a player in this world, not a spectator. Are you on the field or are you in the crowd? Criticizing the people actually in the game. I'm in the game. Leaders set example, and anything that you want to cultivate, you have to first of all cultivate the characteristics you want to see in other people. Of course, yes, you should surround yourself with good people. Don't create the sort of characteristics you want to see in other people and then continue to stay around the wrong sorts of people. But one of the ways in which you can get the right people around you is you can attract them by becoming the sort of person they would want to be around. If you're the sort of person who's always complaining, what sort of environment are you going to cultivate around you? Probably your friends are complainers. If you look at your characteristics, probably your friends are very similar to you. If you're scared to take risks, I guarantee you hang around people who are scared to take risks. People who don't believe in themselves. People who always have something negative to say. It's probably rubbing off on you, or maybe you're the one who had those traits and now it's rubbing off on them. If you're the sort of person who's always making jokes, I know my videos are very seriously, but if you meet me in real life, I'm always making jokes because I understand the importance of managing your state. Being in a bad mood is productive to some extent. When I'm in the gym, I maybe get myself a little bit angry when I'm pushing the weight, think of where I want to get to, have some negative self-talk that's going to help me. But for the most part, when I make these videos, it comes from a point of inspiration, not desperation. And because I'm the sort of person that understands this, typically the people around me are also positive. You need to set the examples that you want in your life. So if you're somebody who's not able to make decisions very quickly, you're going to cultivate that culture around you. What sort of family are you going to raise if you're the sort of person who hesitates? What influence is that going to have on your kids? You're the leader of your life. You're the CEO. Everything bleeds into something else. We're influenced by other people, but we also influence people based off of who we are. Leaders set examples. This is why when I was in that sales role and I was taking calls and I knew what objections they're doing, I could understand what the other reps were going through more than the actual manager himself. I'd done the role longer. And I dealt with the objections longer than him. See, when he was a sales agent, he wasn't doing the same campaign as us. So it's not his fault. He didn't understand the world we're living in as much as me. I was dealing with the objections that were relevant to what we're doing now. So they looked to me as the leader, even though I was just another team agent like them. Become the person that you want to bring into your life. If you're someone who's always been betrayed, always had people who've done you wrong, you're tired of seeing that same pattern in your life. A lot of the times, if you ask absolutely every single person, according to them, they're a really, really good friend. They're always doing the most in the relationship and they're just betrayed by other people. But if you're the sort of person picking bad partners, I want you to question that. What example are you setting when you go out in the world and let people know that you're the sort of person who's always getting into bad relationship after bad relationship? I used to make up that excuse. Oh, it's just these women out here. They're the problem. But I've got friends who have picked partners and they've been with their partner for almost a decade now, of me knowing them. They get on, they're laughing. I'm sure not everything is roses, but they stuck together. So what does that mean? They clearly got that part of their life, right? That means it's something I'm doing. I need to set the example and start making better decisions. This is how you build the sort of personality where you're not afraid of someone trying to influence you because you're so grounded in yourself. You will allow them to try to influence you and you will know what decisions to make. The reason I believe people are so scared when they see someone trying to influence them or sell to them is because they know they make bad decisions. So they're like, oh, I'm scared. If that person sells to me, I might actually buy it and get scammed. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to be scammed. Because I know I have critical thinking ability. I look at a situation, I evaluate it, and then I make a decision. If I come to someone and I'm going to ask them to be my mentor, I'm not going to wait for them to tell me to do something and then hesitate. I used to do that all the time, right? I would look at people online and they would tell me you need to meditate, in order to become present. Oh, no, I don't want to listen about the meditate. Tell me the three tricks I need to do in order to get this woman or get this amount of money, or what's the secret side hustle that's going to make me wealthy. There'll be somebody online that's telling me that maybe you need to work on multiple things. And I'll be like, oh, I don't want that. I want the solution right now. What's the thing that I can change right now? Not understanding that I needed to transform my entire identity. I needed to reinvent myself, which was a process. I needed to become the leader in which I needed when I was younger. And that's how I was going to attract the wealth. So that's what I'm doing now, every single day. What can you do in your life to begin to set the example for the people around you? You might have a business idea that you want your friend to join in with you. Well, one step you can do is you can begin working on that business idea and actually begin to build progress so they see you. And rather than telling them why they should do it, you show them why they should do it. The fourth and final one I'm going to leave you with, there's so many, but I'm going to leave the rest for my newsletter, is the leader sees the bigger picture. See, picture a team of people cutting through the forest. The leader isn't the person at the front with the axe cutting through the tree first. The leader isn't the person at the back that's shouting at the troops cutting through the trees and telling them to cut harder and motivating them. The leader is the guy sat at the top of the tree, looking at the direction they're going in and saying, right guys, we're going in the wrong direction. We need to cut this way. The leader sees the bigger picture. He sees what direction he's moving in. When I talk to you about these character traits, I know sometimes you listen to this and you think, right, how does that apply to me? And maybe you have to sit back with this video and actually really contemplate what I'm trying to tell you. Maybe some of you know something that you can work on immediately after this video to begin to develop yourself. But by you seeing how important it is to become decisive, to be a person who thinks and moves quickly, who's empathetic, who can see life in other people's shoes, you're seeing the bigger picture. Like I said, the life you want is a result of who you become, not what you do. When you realize that, you begin to see the bigger picture. That if you're the sort of person who lies in, then you'll never really be that successful. Not because waking up early is the trick to become successful, But successful people just wake up early because what they have to do requires so much time that they need to start early in the day. Right? Rather than looking at attracting a significant other as simple words that you should say to someone, embody the character traits that someone would want in a significant other: the patience, the emotional discipline, the ability to communicate. Just communicating with someone and being able to articulate yourself in a way where you find a win-win. What experience have you got doing that? See, when I'm speaking on the camera and I'm explaining these complex ideas, what am I also training? Subconsciously and consciously. I'm training my ability to articulate myself. How is that going to help when I'm a parent? And I want to teach my kids about certain life lessons which are very complex. How can I break it down in a language that they understand? I might not be as nuanced as this video. I might give them little nuggets. I might have to pace them into it. I might have to start with the 6 steps to success because their brain hasn't developed. I'll have the empathy to understand that. Understand where they're coming from, what their biggest problems are currently. A leader sees the bigger picture, and when you begin to build these traits on a day-to-day basis, you make decisions. Like, you stop hesitating. You subscribe to a newsletter. You read the content that I'm sending you on a week-to-week basis. You actually start journaling what you've learned. Writing in the comments what's something that you're going through right now that's helped you based off of the video you've watched. You're integrating the personality traits into your personality currently that are going to help you attract the life you want. I have a saying where I say, the life you want is when you have the creativity of a Michael Jackson, but the strategic mind of a Michael Corleone. So you need to dream like an artist, but move like a mastermind. It's not enough to just dream big. It's not enough to watch this video and just say, oh yeah, that's right. I want to be the sort of person who's a leader. Yeah, this is feel-good content. There's a book called The Secret. Go read that if that's what you're looking for. Manifestation, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get you guys to think, right? You need to move like a mastermind. You need the strategic mind of a Michael Corleone. You need to plan your life the way in which a mafia plans a hit. See, when the mafia plan a hit, they look at every little detail. The person's schedule, what time they wake up, where do they go to, who do they hang around with, what weapons should they use, right? You need to look at what you're trying to build and actually break down what are the leadership characteristics you need to embody. I've mentioned some of them in this video, but you should be now thinking. This should have basically triggered you to have a thought process now where you're thinking, right, he's right. What other characteristics could I begin to build that are going to help me become a leader? So in my newsletter, I'm going to go into a few more things that you can get into. I'm going to leave a link in the bio. There's a number of newsletters down there. Take them in. I don't say the same things that I'm saying in these videos. It's a different way to approach it. And with these videos, I sometimes stumble on my words. I'm still learning to articulate myself, guys. I'm taking action. I'm taking risks. I'm being decisive. Pressing record and just talking into a camera. Building those traits that are going to make me a leader one day. Because I know I will be. I'm going to leave that there, guys. Leave a comment to what you got from this video. What are you going to take away from this video? Like, comment, share, and subscribe. My name's Tino, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm out.